Hi, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
Do you know if someone was sitting here?
Elder Hadith was there.
Okay.
Yeah, he's I mean, do you need that seat?
I just need to sit like maybe like right behind here. Actually,
Okay,
I
yeah,
don't need to
he
sit
was.
right here.
That is he's outside right now, but I think he when once you sat there, he didn't want to be like, you got my seat.
Yeah, and I just needed to set this up real
Yeah.
quick, but I'm gonna just grab a chair.
Okay.
Back it up. All right. I'm good. Thank you.
actually that's set to live stream, or are you live stream?
Yeah, I'm using this right here on live stream. I'm not sure what this is for.
Put this on, put this in.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
Beauty?
So, yeah.
I don't know why he put this in, but
So you're doing the live stream?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it live streaming right now.
Okay, great. I got folks in Nigeria that's doing
So
it.
then they just said something too. The Igala Kingdom.
Yeah, you got to the ambassador should be Adegba Abdullahi.
It doesn't say, but he did just say he's watching from the palace of the top.
Yeah, that's the
Wow.
ambassador.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm the USA representative for Igala, and the ambassador is the secretary of diaspora Igala affairs. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm glad y'all are here. I'm glad he's here. Yeah, I just want to be amazing.
You know what? You won't be. Come on.
What time it was?
What time people do that?
It's time right now. If you walk in front of everybody, see you.
When they go to start? Oh no, I don't. I'm not. They just asked me to do my vision just when I got here. Brother, I don't know where the brother is. But check it out. They bring it up to me. And I check with her. She should be able to tell you. You need a chair?
No, I'm trying to see why it's not
Battery in charge? You probably have to.
Weird.
Except it's still plugged out.
Excuse me. Sorry. Oh, no, it's working now. It's working now. Well, good. Okay. Actually, y'all trying to lay down. Thank you.
Huh?
Where's she going? Where's she going? Oh, okay.
We're going to begin right now. We're just waiting on the other drum. Greetings, everyone. How's everybody? All right, all right. We're going to begin. First, we're going to do libation. Libation is very important whenever we have an African event. We are all Africans. All right, we got to have the libation because the libation is whenever someone travels a long distance, you want to offer them something. It's our culture to offer hospitality, to offer food, offer drink. And so we offer libation because we don't know from what distance our ancestors are coming from. We don't know what distance some of the Holy Spirits that we want to invite to be with us is coming. So we're going to begin at this time with libation. So I ask everyone to stand at this time. The drummers will still want us to engage. All right. Forward. I want you to signify by. Let me hear you say it. All right. So we're going to begin. In the name of God, who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we invite His Holy Spirit to come in and be with us as a vision for the future. In the name of the great African, who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, who built the four corners of the earth, we invite those great Africans to be with us and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the great Africans who took that civilization, spread it to the four corners of the earth, took it into Guatemala, architecture, high culture, you name it. We introduced it to the other peoples of the earth, taught them to build stone structures when they were living in houses that didn't have windows nor shoes on their feet. We invite those spirits to be with us. In the name of Taharka, the great African king who unified Upper and Lower Egypt at a time when they were in chaos, he civilized them, brought them into the worship of one God. We invite His Holy Spirit to be with us. In the name of Harriet Tubman, who liberated 750 people in South Carolina. So when they say Harriet Tubman liberated 300 people, just know that in one operation, she liberated 750 people right here. So if she liberated 750 people right here, she liberated a whole lot more than 300. We invite her great spirit, Harriet Tubman, to be with us. During the time she was in South Carolina, 7 men were dispatched to South Carolina. I don't know that Harriet sent them, but they came from where she was. And they started a fire in Charleston. It's called the Great Fire of 1861. And it burned Charleston to the ground. Harriet Tubman. We invite her spirit to be with us. In the name of Shields Green, 1856, left Charleston, South Carolina, went and got with Frederick Douglass. Said, Frederick, we need to fight. Frederick said, hey, I'm a lover, not a fighter. He said, well, look, I'm gonna find this white boy named John Brown. John Brown is fighting. So he joined with John Brown and they attacked Harper's Ferry. They was hoping that the other Africans joined them in the fight. They didn't, but the rest is history. And I'll tell you about that later. In the name of Austin King, Charleston, South Carolina, who, when the British had Charleston under siege, he went to the British and said, is it true that if we come and fight for, if we come and get arms from the British side, that we can fight for our freedom? And the British said yes. And after he joined the British, 100,000 of our people got free at the end of the American Revolution because we fought for our freedom, not for the freedom of anyone else. In the name of Tunis Campbell, a great African brother who at the end of the Civil War not only created a nation that we don't know about, okay? This brother unified the 5 golden isles between Georgia and Florida, created a Congress, created an army. He did all these things at that time at the end of the Civil War. We invite his great spirit and his wife who built schools for our people. We invite their spirit to be with us and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the brothers who fought at the Stoner Rebellion, and the report said that we killed them all and we put their heads on sticks from Florida back to Charleston. But yet they advertised for 2,500 escaped Africans during that time. And notice I didn't say slave because they didn't bring slaves from Africa, they brought Africans from Africa. And so we invite their spirit to be with us and give us a vision for the future. In the name of Umar ibn Said, great African scholar, captured in Africa, sold into enslavement in Charleston, ran away from Charleston, left Charleston, was imprisoned in Fayetteville. And when he was there, he wrote out on the walls, leaving for all to see, Gullah writing. We invite his great spirit to be with us. In the name of all things holy, in the name of all the spirits that we can summon to do good, in the name of all the spirits that will empower us to build a better world on the platform of truth, we invite them to be with us this day and to enjoy this assembly. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Greetings, everybody. It is so amazing to see all of you here and your beautiful faces. I just want you to know that I love you, that we welcome you from the Gullah Geechee Nation. And a lot of people say, where is that? Well, the Gullah Geechee Nation goes from Cape Fear, North Carolina, all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, and 30 to 35 miles in there. And along that coast, you find people doing the same things, eating red rice and fish, farming, doing things like that. So I want you all to really take in tonight Professor Smalls, because he's going to take us back to where we came from. They say the water bring us and the water take us. So without any further ado, we are going to actually have some food first, and then we will go ahead and do the rest of the ceremony. But I did want to tell you this before you get to eating. You're not children wonder about what your secret be. You're not rich with the Gullah Geechee. If people think you're not lie about the one you're gonna be, then crack your teeth about your history. And Brother Nazar is gonna give us some more history, so we know who we be down. Yeah. We be Gullah Geechee anointed people. Can I hear you say that? Yeah. Can I hear you say we be Gullah Geechee anointed people?
Gullah Geechee anointed people.
And on that note, I'm gonna drop the mic. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody.
Greetings.
So what we got? First of all, thank y'all for coming out.
Yes.
It was a last minute thing. Brother Smalls gave me a call saying he coming home. We brought him home. So what we're gonna do is before we eat, I'm not gonna be long winded. Everybody said everything. Brother Nazar did an excellent job. Elder Cartertown did an excellent job. I appreciate the Gullah Geechee Angel Network. Sister Nesbitt, who was out of town, I appreciate her and the original Kwanzaa Planning Committee for helping us out. Mama Africa, all the food creation who put this whole thing with this beautiful building. And if y'all never had none of the food, y'all get a sample of it tonight. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the elders and let the elders eat first, and then after the elders, we'll just go roll by roll by roll by roll. So elders, if y'all like, y'all can start making your way towards the buffet area, and we're gonna just do a little line around. Brother Dion and Sister Autumn, they're gonna take care of you guys. Oh yeah, oh yeah. We're gonna let Elder Carlytown do a grace before we get ready to eat.
Father God, we thank you for the food that we're about to partake. We thank you for the hands that fix this food. We thank you for everything that's all good. In your name, we thank you. If I had 1,000 tongues, I couldn't say thank you enough.
Ashe.
Y'all don't be shy now. Y'all don't be shy. All the elders, brothers, and sisters, y'all come on up here and get y'all something to eat first. There you go, Mama. You too, Mama.
I saw that post on Facebook. Memorial when I was I even said something. Oh no, I haven't since I just mentioned it. It's been a long time. But I couldn't. Oh no, I haven't. No, that's
Someone else's one. Oh, it's yours? Oh no, I'm on here. And I got it connected to my laptop. You can give me a favor? You can meet here. You can give me a napkin.
Oh man, great to see you. Oh man. Oh, she's on man, you get her with that broadcast. That spicy ketchup on
But she has no foundations.
Bell at some point in time come back. You know what I'm saying?
But I definitely want to see her now because I see her all the time. You got her on your Facebook page? Okay.
But
How tall is she? It's like Elena. I'm 5'11".
okay, so she just probably 5'8".
5'8". Elena is my height. Kim daughter.
Yeah.
Elena, her oldest daughter, is my height. And I'm look at when I put her when she was she bent down. I said, and look at no one's basketball. No basketball.
She wasn't no part of that.
Yep.
She wasn't none of that.
I know.
I'm fine. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, no, she wasn't no part of that.
I know how it is.
But I told her I give her that moment. I said I give you the moment, Rebel. You've been in it since you were here.
Yeah, she's been in it for a long time.
You know.
Lena, I bought the whole basketball court and all the stuff, and she ain't even having it.
Hey.
All right,
How you doing there, brother?
Good to go.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Oh, no.
Thank
We
you,
good.
man.
We good.
That was beautiful.
Who? Right there. He moving around.
Now I feel bad because he never say nothing to nobody.
Who? Oh, wow. You see that? Huh? Oh. Oh, yeah. You done so much. Oh, yeah. You mom see.
If he wants me to let them know that was the seat, I'll let them know.
Yeah. You know. Hey, Hadith. You need to let the sister know she,
Yeah, it was his. I was trying to give it back to him. That's what I was trying to give back.
She was trying to give it back to you.
I was trying to give it back to you. Did you like that? Alright, though. I'm sorry, Spice. You know when you go, it's out of the
Oh, wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was exactly. That's awesome. I'll probably be the same. But I know you got to do it. I want to I want you to come to the see. I got these paintings over there on my feet. Right there, this one right here, that's the heart. I didn't think that was going to be more without. But I just brought 5 pieces. And then like
We can start from this first row, going back to the next row, and start lining up.
Right.
In this next row,
Remember, you know, one thing
Thank you.
We can start this next line, this next row right here. We can start lining up down there.
Oh no, no, I know I didn't. You know what? That's I can look at it. That's what Charles. That's what it looks like. Yeah, that's Charles. That. Yeah, Charles is Oh yeah, his work is distinct, and he did so many pieces, and they all were all over Charleston, and he had difficulty locating them all after he passed. You know? Mhm. Right. And LJ was really, he was great. But there was some musicians that had some of his work, and they were about to throw it away, and they didn't want to even get to the family. LJ bought it. Yeah. And they thought they had located all his work. And one day I was responding to a complaint about the noise. I had this bar that kept making all the noise. So when I went in and went to the back where it was, back. I'm paying you. I said, I own this. He was like, he said, when they bought the place, it was mine. And I'm sure why. Because they were pretty good. But they liked it. They were awesome people. And, his work is just everywhere. And he, I'm going to tell you, I think one of his greatest work was a mural that he had on the building. And right here in Charleston, and the people sold the building, and they just painted right over it. And that was such. And what it was a mural that had like the creation going through where Adam and Eve, and you saw the ship, you saw the brothers and royal, and women and royalty. And then you see the warfare, then the ship going across the ocean, and riding in chains. All this was on that one page. Yeah. And so I asked his son, I said, y'all need to get a picture of that thing when something happens to that building. And just like I said, well, he said he kept asking me where it's at, so I took pictures of it. And I forwarded it to them, and the phone that I did it with, I didn't have it anymore. I was so busy that he was supposed to be doing a show. So I said, we can do a joint show on my work. So I have to do my piece, you have his piece, and we need to showcase it. And I used to teach art, and I brought him one day so the children can meet him. And he began to this kind of put some things on paper, and he handed over a piece of the children watched. It was a great experience. And that's why I say you gotta know who's in our midst. If and he had his trouble. Lemonade master. Yeah. Master. And I'll tell you one thing though. he fought with demons. But when it was time to mix a lot, I had the restaurant on my balcony. I had bank was always upstairs, and one day this came to me. She said, be okay for us to go upstairs. Let's kind of feel locked out. He said, I just need to go to the top of the stairs. I said, for what? He said, I got my credit. I said, bro, go ahead. He said, bro, go ahead, man. I said, I'll open it up for you. But the brother was like that. He was like, I almost wonder why you trying to get what you trying to get away from. He was trying to get away from something. He was trying to get something. I told his family about it. They brought some of it to us. When we get up there to make the salad. Yourself having been taught and you share freely what you've been taught. So
as soon as this line died down, we can let this whole back section right come on in.
But the teaching, just being a teacher. I learned it when I was in Israel that he said he's a great teacher. He said teaching is when you teach others, you are teaching and learning at the same time. When you get out of the way and you allow it, so that's it. You're teaching and you're learning at the same time. And so now, having been taught and having taught, you can travel anywhere and don't have these other people have about fear and limitations. Right. Yeah. No. Right. The wisdom knowledge. Yeah. Oh, I know, because I hear now. No, no, now. Now for self. Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. African. Okay.
Oh no, I've tried to discern whenever I want me to do research. Right now.
Right, right, right. You know, I wanted to. This is great to have this conversation. The term uh, now, am I correct in that it is a corruption of taboo? Oh, okay. Right, right, right. So now what do you say when someone says they are, they terrorists? Because to them, who are just who are on that so anything your enemy says, so enemy is saying something other than promise. Saying something else that said and instructed. And words all that that's why that's what tells us you obey. I told all of
Y'all from this back section, we can start lining up to get y'all to eat. I don't want y'all to starve over here.
So what caused me to dislike you? Skin. And a lawsuit. He's giving you. I am. But we wish the life of this world as opposed to living the life with you. Oh, self-purification. What you eat, what you think, what you say, what you utter, even what you draw, what you paint, what you sketch, what you reflect. I can only, because people come to me all the time. I can't. Because when I paint, what I paint here, I paint one narrative west from 1526 coming up to 1876. 1876 was the last major, for lack of a different time, conflagration. I mean, major riots all over America where they were shooting. Where you said, I had enough of this so-called Reconstruction. We bring it to I'm taking out and it was big riots all over America. Like Kingsport, South Carolina. This was the only place in 1876 where more of us were white than whites were black. And I learned that from a white professor. Professor Merritt said, University of South Carolina. And I painted a piece to commemorate. So that's what I'm at. So my art is a picture, basically, because this is a marginalized part of our history that we fought diligently for freedom. Other than with the Union and other than with, George Washington. George Washington was back only until we defeated at the Battle of Kent's Landing. And I think that's what did more research. And I said, wow, this is
Like setting up all the tech stuff.
knowledge to
For a long time.
but it's not 180. And
I
so
work at Sacred
I
View, though. I do like the website.
So anyway, well,
Yeah.
I just
Yep, I
know
enjoy
that
it.
the US and having traveled to study abroad.
Did you get something to drink?
I know I've studied abroad and I've studied myself. I've recorded from years ago. And I say I'm able to communicate with people on a different level than others who haven't done that. So, I just wanted to see what you thought about the Taliban, how we even kind of celebrate. Right. That's all it is. It's all it is. That's all it is. I've witnessed it. Oh, that's your.
Oh, classes.
Huh?
That's your
Oh,
lesson?
thank you. I witnessed there was a fellow explorer. Well, actually, he had some people on a bus in their shelters, and we were in the field taking some videos and stuff. We being the brothers, myself and some other brothers, African Hebrew my brothers, and the helicopters when they came over and crested the hill, and brother Alien the Don, he said, put your hands up, put your hands up so they can see your hands. Okay, so we put our hands up, and they paused over us, and then they went forward. And we started firing on this Afrikan. No one. I mean, what the that was a war crime. And they went on. But what it is, the guy, they never made the news. So, but we and he said, I remember Elliot he said, keep your hands like that so they use because we saw what happened. So I was in the army. I was in the army at the time when we invaded Panama and Grenada. That was cold-blooded because it was aliens, not Panama, but Grenada. After they got and the only reason they attacked Grenada was to get the American public minds off of the got to understand yes, by that and so it was and, you know, and so when they told us that we had to jump from Panama we didn't know what a grenade was. We didn't know what and why. They didn't even have to lie together. We were supposed to be going to be and you know, that was being utilized by the Russians who had Cuba. And none of that was happening. They didn't have time to lie together. The students that we saw in the 82nd Airborne 101 Fort Campbell jumped it. They thought it was somebody. And you know, so anyway, that's and they killed. I used to put name 7 in summer of 97, 98, 99. I sent my wife in 2000 by herself. She was at a conference. And yeah, but other than that, I haven't been back. I have 2 out here. But since that time, I've moved you know, from that school. But you know, I'm the son over. I used to spend that shit. Absolutely. I did. Really? I need a recipe. Oh wow. Okay. I found him to be a great teacher. You know, I used to go to his mosque and my you know, and we didn't see each other long because the time was quite the most. But we
Last group of people to be served is at the bar right there. Yes, sir. I was just letting you know. Back to you. Yeah, about like 20 minutes. And then, yeah. Say, young Jill, come on up there. That's my son.
yeah.
People walking around here practicing his introduction. Okay. Yes, sir. And then Jill will come up there.
Oh, in my head. Well, you ain't got no type of head.
But what it was, they supposedly found the guys who their shepherds. But then everybody came in that apartment. In that apartment building, and they destroyed that one building. And no, but they didn't just get it. And these all got so for a reason, for a reason. Absolutely. I was in combat with one and we learned so that we can then using our dialects so that like I said, absolutely.
Talk about this whole week. Okay.
So we
Oh yeah. I got everything live. Yep.
We're about to begin. We're about to begin. First, giving all praises to the omnipotent God of creation. Greetings to His Royal Highness, His Royal Majesty, Igala, the Igala King, the Igala Kingdom, to Okoata, to Ejuata, Ayegba Abdullahi Odojo, who is viewing from Nigeria. We send greetings and blessings to them as they join us in spirit in this event. For those who don't know me, my name is Abba Nazar. My Igala name is Edibo Edi Abba Nazar. The Igala Kingdom is an ancient kingdom, a Nile Valley kingdom that actually migrated from Nile Valley years ago. And the palace is in Nigeria, in Ida Kodi State, where the Niger and the Benue River converges. About 4,803,000 of us were taken from the Bight of Benin, the Bight of Biafra, from 1502 to about early 1800s. And so among the Gullah population, you will find people. And there's a reconnection that is for those of us who are part of the Igala Kingdom. And many of us are here tonight here. Our Queen Mother, Ima Aliela, many of you know her as Mama Abena. She's not here with us tonight. She's in Atlanta, and she sends her greeting and her blessings to all. A museum here in Charleston. It is the African Redemptive Struggle. Also, the acronym is ARS, ours, because it's ours. You know, the one in DC is the government's. It ain't ours, it's theirs. The one that's about to open in the International African American Museum, you know, a great structure. It'll be covering a whole lot of things. But I come out tomorrow for an open house. And I brought some of the paintings from the museum. I'm also an artist. You can say I traveled the world and studied from some master teachers. And we're blessed today to have one of these great master teachers in our midst. I've not met the great professor before, but I've studied his work, and we are blessed to have a master teacher in our midst tonight. So I'm going to just cover pieces that I brought in from the museum, the African Redemptive Struggle Museum. To my right, step up on the stage here. Taharka, can everybody see it? Is it clear? Can everybody see it? All right, Taharka, going back to 730 BC. This brother's army was so powerful. He's written about in the book of Kings, Chronicle, and Isaiah. He's referred to as the King of Africa but king of Ethiopia in the Bible. It's at a time when Ethiopia actually meant the entire continent. This brother's army was so vast, and you see he has a W raised, which represented the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. And when the Assyrians threatened to attack Jerusalem, he sent word that if you do attack Jerusalem, I'll send an army so vast that when my first man reaches you, the last man will not have left. And later, they did attack. Later, it was like a 20-year period of time. And his army did attack, and he killed about 183,000 Assyrians. Now, that's in the Bible. You know, there's a formula for understanding the book because there's so much of it that's parables, symbols, metaphors, and symbols, the metaphor and the simile, and they don't understand what they're reading. And so there's a formula for understanding it. But the fact is, this brother's army was so powerful. And so the reason why I start with Taharka and this very powerful army is we can't start in, the history with Africans with the enslavement of Africans. I mean, nobody does that. Well, people do that. We got to stop doing that. That's what I'm saying. Right. This image is of Princess Inipi, and it's spelled I-N-I-K-P-I. Princess Inipi in 1516, when the Igala Kingdom and the Benin Kingdom were in a strategic alliance. They were one. Benin king was secretly selling Igala people to the Portuguese. And it was learned, when it was learned that they were selling our people to the Portuguese, the Igala king, of course, said, we got to go to war. But before we go to war, I need to know if we're going to win. Now, there was a time in our culture when we found out what was going to be the outcome before we did it. You don't just jump in, then look. You know, you heard the saying, look before you leap. So he sent for the priest. The priest said, I'm going to consult the oracle. And so the priest, and let's just call this brother the priest. Okay? No, it's not Jesus. Okay? This is the priest. So he consults the oracle, and he learns if we fight Benin, we would lose, first of all, and all be sold into enslavement. So the king said, well, that can't work. What's the next plan? So he said, I don't know, I got to check the oracle. So he went to check the oracle. And the oracle came back and told him. And what he learned was so distressing. He told the king, he said, my mouth is not big enough to bring the message out. Okay. And so he left. And so the king said, hey, bring it back here. You got to tell me about this thing. What is the next plan? So anyway, long story short, he said the only way we would win against Benin is if you sacrifice your only daughter in Nipi. And he said, well, I'm not going to do that. So I need another plan. And so he said, plan. So for weeks, the king was so distressed, he wouldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. And Princess Inipi noticed that he was distressed and she tried to get him to talk about what's going on. Try to ask her father, why are you so distressed? He wouldn't tell her, so she went to the priest. And the priest told her. So this image of Princess Inipi is of her contemplating what she's going to do, because right now the fate of the Igala kingdom was in her hands. And so eventually she called for the king's council, and she told him that she would gladly sacrifice herself to save her kingdom and to save the people who were taken into enslavement. So in 1516, she and 9 of her servants were sacrificed right where the Benue and the Niger River converges. And the Benin army attacked, but they sent the scout first. And when the scout got to where the sacrifice was made and where the rivers converge, he looked and he could see that the entire kingdom looked like it was on fire. There was an illusion cast by her sacrifice. Now, this is a true story, and it's known all over West Africa. I found this out when I was this about 2 years ago. And Inipi is a huge thing in West Africa, but this is Igala culture. Now, Igala is Igala kingdom. There was a point when in Igala, in the Igala language, all the words that begin with consonants, there was E put before it. In other words, Gullah became Igala. It's just like, who's at the door? E chef, in the Gullah language. Who he is. What he say? The etymological root of all of this is Igala kingdom. And so think about this now. Of all the kingdoms we hear about, we never hear about the Igala kingdom. A vast, huge, powerful kingdom. We hear about Hansel and Gretel, Sleeping Beauty, all kinds of stuff like that. And we didn't even hear about Princess Inipi. And there's some scholars who write about the 16 crucified saviors, but we never heard about Princess Inipi. That was 1516. 1516, her sacrifice so that we could, never lose a war. So my time is real short, so I'm going to go real quickly. And 10 years later, Georgetown, South Carolina, that's where the first report went. It said that the first enslaved Africans was brought to Georgetown, South Carolina by the Spanish. They got freed within 3 months, and the Gullah War began. And it ran from 1526 to 1876. We were fighting before the American Revolution and after the Civil War and winning. That's what's so important, because we got these victories that we don't hear about. We know about Crispus Attucks, right? Anybody know about Crispus Attucks? He was the first to die in the American Revolution. He died in the Boston Massacre. Okay? Then, which was before the American Revolution. And then in the American Revolution, there's Colonel Todd, a brother who led the Black Brigade, the Royal Ethiopian Regiment, and brothers who were so successful, they made it back to the continent and pretty much founded Sierra Leone. Now the British, we know the British found Sierra Leone, but there's a brother named Isaac Anderson from Charleston, South Carolina, who when he got back there in 1792, he started a revolution in Sierra Leone. Now, we should know about this stuff, but we don't. So anyway, there's a reason why we should know these things. That's why we're here today, to hear from a master teacher. And to bring on our master teacher, I want to bring our young son up. Yeah. So you can introduce our speaker for tonight. So let's bring, you okay? You need some time? You chewing? I caught you with your mouth open?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got another great speaker here tonight that's going to bring on our master teacher. I take it he's about ready to be brought on. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please present our Pan-Africanism teacher, James Small.
He told me he was going to give me this long introduction. You'll probably hear more beads. I just had a knee replacement. So.
I tell him that.
I was listening to Bhagavad give the history of developed people, and there's a lot of history. I got to sit at your feet and learn. Oh yeah. See, one thing about being a teacher, you got to be quick, willing to learn, so you can teach. So I'm down here in Charleston, and I was so happy to see my sister Jeanette, who had to leave, but it's been almost 10 years then. Love you so much, Sam. That's the most dynamic political lady there. She and her husband, they ran the politics in Harlem for many years before we lost our brother after that World Trade Center thing, where he got poisoned down there from that stuff. But it's good to be home. I was born and raised in Georgetown County on Acadia Plantation down in there, Paul's Island, just outside of Georgetown. But half of my family, the Austin and the Simmons, are here in Charleston. So I spent almost as much time in Charleston as I spent in Georgetown growing up. I remember when we owned most of downtown Charleston, and my Aunt Florence had a big motel down here, and she was in Austin. And I also was stationed at the naval base here. So anybody remember the Ponderosa?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Some of my people's are here. Did we dance at the Ponderosa? The Ponderosa was a club to beat all club. All right. And so that's where we would go and really have a good time, party, and enjoy ourselves. And there was I don't even want to call it a street gang. There was a neighborhood association called the Black Panthers. How many people remember the Black Panthers? Okay. This is before Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. Charleston had the Black Panthers. Huh? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. You were part of it, weren't you? I probably had it out with you one night at the Ponderosa. We had a lot of fights up in there now. When I was leaving Charleston, when I got out of the Navy, I'll tell this story to open up. We went, there was a young man, there was 4 of us, and all of us were getting out within 4 or 5 days. And except me, I had the longest time, I had another 2 weeks. So we all hung out at the Ponderosa. And that was the first time I ever smoked a joint. The last time I smoked a joint. And so one young man was very light-skinned, and he was Asiatic and African. And he said he wanted us to meet his dad. He said his dad owned a Chinese restaurant down on King Street. I don't know whether that restaurant is still there. Okay. And so we went over to this restaurant about midnight. And he parked in the parking lot in back and went inside to get his father to come and meet his friends. In the meantime, me and a brother named Ray, who was a Puerto Rican brother, we were sitting on the hood of the car smoking that one joint. Right? The other brother was a Marine. He had a broken arm, so he stayed in the car. So there was 2 white women. There was a white guy sitting in the car sleeping. 2 white women bringing another white guy. He's real drunk across the street. So Ray asked the guy, "Do y'all know what time it is?" And he said, "Nigga, go to the time box." Well, you didn't call us that in those days. Not and live or get away. So when he said that, Ray's foot was in his face. The white woman fell, cocked up on the ground. I'm trying, and she started screaming. So I go to get the other white woman to stop her from screaming, and she fell out. The guy we thought was sleeping in the car, when we look, he's going in the trunk. So any black man know when a white man goes in the trunk, there's a gun in that trunk. So you don't try to run and fight him, you run, right? And so we ran. And I was wearing a beige trench jacket and a black beret. I forgot what Ray was wearing. But at any rate, he opened fire and started shooting as we turned around the restaurant. So people ran out of the restaurant to see what's going on. A white man runs out of the restaurant wearing a trench coat and a black Stetson, and he kills this guy. But he means to kill me. So he shoots the white man. Ray and I, we go in front of this restaurant and walked in the front like we said, "What's going on? What's happening?" There's all the people, because the brother who brought us up there, he sees the truckers and they drive off and leave us. So we stand, that was White Charleston, man, right? We're stranded in White Charleston and neither of us know our way around. And so when all the people run out the door to the parking lot where the shooting was going on, we decided, okay, to turn around, walk out the front door, and just try to ease on down the street. We see some cars way down, but it's meaningless. So we start running. The third step, it lit up like a Christmas tree. All those cars with the police. So they chase us down this little street. I run into one of those Civil War cannons. Everybody having those damn Civil War cannons in their yard. I ran into this thing and smacked me out. So I fell in the grass and I took my coat off and threw it like I'm jumping the fence, but pulled the coat and balled it up, crawled up in the hedge by the man's step. Ray ran into the backyard. So the police catch him, but they don't get me. And they're beating him. We don't want you, boy. Where the nigga? Boom. They wanted the nigga. And the nigga was like this far, like where you are. That's why I was by the stoop in the heads. They're here on the sidewalk by the car, giving him the whipping. The white guy standing up on his step over my head with a shotgun, looking for the nigga. And I was in this bush. I want to tell you how you get to know and understand that there's something called God and your nature and your essence. I'm that close to, because they would have killed me, because he had killed the white man, the other guy. He ended up going to prison for that. You know, they had a trial and the whole, I kept up with it. But at any rate, they don't get me. I'm all bloodied, and put my face in the sand all stuck to the blood. They stay about 30 minutes searching. They don't find me. I'm right here. They're right here. They search everywhere except in those hedges. And the man on the step, like where you're sitting, he was like right here up on the steps. I'm right in his bush. He never saw me. And so the cop leaves. I ease in the man's backyard. He got a German Shepherd dog. But I'm from Acadia Plantation, so I get the little dog, and I go in the doghouse with the dog and the fleas, because the fleas start biting immediately. The police come back, shine the light all around the backyard, and I start running, because I don't know where I'm at. I'm just running in a direction. Then I see a light. Now it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's got to be the police, because it's Charleston. There's nobody on the street at 4 o'clock in the morning in 1966, right? So here I'm running. I see this car. I crawl under somebody's house. It's the police. They go down. I wait there about 10 minutes, come out, and I start running again. You know the projects down by the old Cooper River Bridge?
Yep.
I had a girlfriend there. I'm not going to call her name. His family might be up in here. So I get to the battery, and I know where I'm at. Once I get to the battery, I know how to get to her house. So I get to the house, I'm all messed up, swollen, bloody. Bam, bam, bam on the door. She ran to the door in her 90s and stuff. And it's me. And she, instead of saying how bad I'm off, she was like, "Stop, what are you doing here?" Then she gets herself and said, "What happened to you?" Then my boy Ralph comes stumbling out the room, "What's going on?" Y'all get it?
Yeah.
So I go like, "Yo, I don't care what y'all doing. Just help me." Help me, right? So they helped me. They got me in and they washed my face up and they got the warm water and they got me cleaned up. But I'm still a mess. So I tell Ralph, "You go back to the ship, go in my locker, get me a uniform, get some shoes and hat, bring it back." Because I was in civilian clothes. And this way we get a cab, but I'll be a sailor instead of a civilian. And we'll go, because the Puerto Rican brother never gave me up. And I paid his bail, which was $500. You know what $500 was in 1966? That was all the little money I had, you know? But at any rate, that was my last night out in Charleston. I hadn't been out in Charleston until tonight, so it's not going to be the same kind of night, right? Well, I know it's not going to be. But I learned a lesson from that night, that those people couldn't see me and I was right there. Those cops would have killed me if they had gotten me that night, because I hit a white woman. They wouldn't care about the dude that got shot. I hit the little woman in that parking lot. So I got away, left Charleston. I love you, Charleston, but I ain't never coming back. I did come back to Charleston one more time. By that time, I'm with Black Liberation Army, Black Panther Party. I'm packing, doing what we do. Went to Branchville, but I had to take the bus here to get to Branchville to friend Sophie's funeral. And I'm being followed Now, they probably was following me because I was wearing a black leather jacket and a black beret. That was, you know, the 70s. And I had to leave. But Charleston was an extraordinary place. Enslaved persons in the genocide. And we're confused about some of our new knowledge coming today. And I think I'm going to sit down and see what spirit's going to talk to y'all best. Because I'm hearing, and you know, I love my little friend, Tariq Nasheed. But I don't understand. I understand there's a context where you can use the term foundational African American. And then there's this other with the crazy lady and the crazy lawyer. What they call that one? Eidos. I'm just an African. And that overrides everything else. You know why it overrides? It's not the oldest word we've ever used. It's the word that 99.9% of us use, and that makes it override everything else, because the people makes the consensus.
Right.
And the word is not a European word. It did not come from somebody named Leo Africanus. That's a myth. It comes from the word Afrikan, which was really the people who, the black people who used to live in what is Tunisia and Algeria today. That's what they call themselves. That was their family name or ethnic name. So these are the people the Romans bumped into first in that part of Africa. So the Romans used that word Afrikia, or what became Africa. Okay. And even the word Moorish, let's see, you got on your nice Moorish hat. Is that Moorish? Are you wearing
this? This is Igala.
Igala. That, okay, then we're cool. Me and you ain't gonna have to fight tonight.
Right, we don't have to.
I was gonna be going there.
I know.
But the Moors is an anglicizing of a Roman word, morush, which is the Romanizing of a Greek word, merush, which simply means black.
That's it.
And so we try to give ourselves identities that divide us from the rest of our people.
Right.
Even the Igala people is an African people. If I was to do the DNA of the Igala and the Yoruba and the Beni, there would be 99% genetically the same people.
Same people.
They would be culturally different, though.
Right.
Historically and experientially different. And that's how people define themselves historically. It says we have a culture and an understanding of the universe and ecology that go back 1,000,000 years. And we have studied the laws of nature and the laws of cosmology, and we've codified into our social cultural context. And we live by these laws to maintain harmony and balance between us and the rest of nature. And so we can then teach the other communities who's new to developing a culture that allow them to harmonize themselves with the cosmology and the ecology. Because everybody in here is really the same person. I'm just go where the spirit takes me, right? As different as you appear to be, much of it is an illusion of misunderstanding that allow you to feel so different. Because if in the beginning there was just one, and everything comes from the one, then everything is the one. And everything else is just cosmetic and experience. But we live in a white culture that tells you that difference is more important to pursue than a likeness. Okay. When the universe or nature or whatever we want to call it, God or Allah or Yemajah or Elohim or whatever, decided to manifest itself as human, it manifested itself as an African woman. Because brothers, y'all ain't giving birth to nothing through your rectum. So the first manifestation, just in basic logic, said, when the universe spun off the first human being, it had to be an African woman. Okay? Then the question is going to come about, where was the man? Well, that penis you got dangling is simply a tubula for the passageway of a body of energy that's contained in a seed you call the sperm. Well, that energy is in nature, and that impregnated that first woman. And she gave birth to that first man. European took it and flipped it on us and said it was this dude first, and he cut out a rib from the dude and created women. No, he's so stupid sometimes that he even believe that stupidity. But they do, and they were willing to die for years on that false belief. If you go to every African language, their word for person, people, place, or thing, in whatever language you look at, you'll see that their word for God is either the suffix or the prefix for the word for person, people, place, or thing. So what the African is saying throughout its history is that we're God having a human experience. Now, a lot of people don't want to go there. When I started going there 30-something years ago, people are using the term now, but people got mad when they didn't invite me back to speak because they didn't get it. If something is God, Allah, the Supreme, it is supreme, is omnipotent, is omnipotent, is omnipresent. That means nothing can occupy space or time but it. That being the case, then what the hell are the rest of us? We have to be aspects of it. That's the only logic you can arrive at. Okay, what science you use? Because if you got two gods, you got no God. Okay, that's his thinking. If there's something, and so if you look at many African languages, when they talk about God, the airways I like to use best and most, because they call it Sobendisa. The totality of creation is divinity. So if the totality of creation is divinity, then we are contained within that totality as an aspect of it. And if you're an aspect of a thing, you contain the total possibility of the thing. That's why if somebody want to clone something, they can take a piece of skin or cell from anywhere in your body, because every cell in your body, though they do peculiar work, contain the totality of what's in your body. And that's African culture. See, our culture, Africa didn't have a religion. You see me with all these beads, this have nothing to do with religion. But many of us think it does, and that's why we find ourselves confused, even when we return back to things African. You know, the word religion itself, if you look at the words, it means to bind back to something. What should you be binding back to? Your ancestral wisdom and understanding of the universe and the environment you live in. Your culture is your education system. And when someone fracture and shatter your culture, they've destroyed the learning process by which you reproduce yourself as yourself. You understand? You can reproduce yourself as somebody else. You know? I had a beautiful young Japanese sister came up to me a little while ago, and she was talking, and I had a beautiful concept and understanding. And I remember when I first started studying Japan many, many, many years ago, I realized it was a black civilization before it was an Asian civilization. If you want to know why most of the other Asians are pissed off at the Japanese people, because they're too black for the rest of them. No, you gotta understand. See, people, this thing we call, like we said, white supremacy, ain't nothing supreme about whiteness.
Nothing. No, nothing at all.
Okay. There is an inferiority complex that creates a hostility against us. But he's not hostile against us because we're black. He's hostile against God itself. He's hostile against nature. We happen to be the profound element of the human aspect of nature that he can never become again. That's what he's pissed about, because he can't be black.
Right.
Okay.
Now listen to me well now, because I'm just dealing with spiritual. That's trying to think. I had a whole nother lecture on that computer back there. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do what I'm feeling in the room, right?
Right.
What makes us a Gala Geechee people? It ain't that label. We could throw that label away and call us the cuckoo people. If we still maintain the cultural integrity and the value system of those ancestors, that's what makes us the Gala Geechee people.
That's right.
It's values, it's character, it's ethics, it's moral, it's principle that's put in a teaching format you call culture that you can repeat and have repetition, 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 and then carry on intergenerational transmission of that body of wisdom to the new ones that's coming. It's good to have a label because you can define your context, but you got to know why you're labeled that thing. I always love coming home because y'all are the sweetest people in the world. It reminds me of certain parts of West Africa among the same people we call the Ghana people. There's a kind of a sweetness. It's like when I'm up in the north, I know a Galageechee woman. They're sweet. So I can meet anybody. And they're from South Carolina. They're from parts of North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. I know that's my people. I can meet you the first time. I know you. Because I feel something about you.
Right.
It's different. But see, we forgot what made us different. What made us different because we were the God people. We were the God people. And people scared of that because we done got other religions that say God is this and God is that and God is this. I grew up in St. Anne's Baptist Church. And Papa had me in the pulpit at 16. When Malcolm X got gunned down, I'm the guy who became the imam that took his place at age 21. I'm Al-Hajj Amin Shaheed. I've been to Mecca twice. And then I realized that ain't ours either. That came out of us. But it is not us. Christianity came out of us, but it is not us. Judaism came out of us, but it is not us. Those were supplements that other people took from our essence and created to organize themselves to compete with us. Now, there's a lot of detail to that, but you do the detail. I done did the study.
Right.
The Ethiopian church is older than the Catholic church, and there is no Protestant church before the Catholic church. So what does that tell you? Right?
Absolutely.
If the Ethiopian church is 500 years older than the Catholic church, the Catholic church is 500 years before Luther's Reformation that produces all the Protestant church, which church is the oldest?
Ethiopia.
But the Ethiopians don't worship the same way as the white Christians do.
Absolutely.
And they have different stories and different books. And so, and even that was a newcomer to Ethiopia, because when the Ethiopian church was first founded, I forgot the name of the emperor, because y'all gotta remember I'm 77 years old. When you get up in the maze, they'd be slipping away. They'd be trying to catch it, but that memory still be moving. But there was a sister who burnt all the churches down. She was the Queen Mother. See, Queen Mothers outrank kings in Africa, by the way, people, so y'all understand that. Queen Mothers outrank kings in the context of African culture. Now, in African culture now, where we're mimicking white culture with this false kingship. And women could also be kings in Africa. But most of the time, women were not the kings, the men were the kings. See, women, because y'all messed up over here too. It ain't just us that's messing up with messing with y'all. Y'all be messing with us too. I done had more broken heart than you can sew back together. Right? So I know don't be playing, right? But women represent in universe the power. And in African culture, you are the power. Men represent authority given to them by the power. That's how African culture works. But you got to understand it right. It ain't ruling over. It's having authority given by the source of authority itself, which is the feminine aspect of the society. When you go back to ancient Egypt, you see a woman, right, sitting with a child sitting on her lap. We call her a Set. And on top of her head, what's on her head? A chair, a throne. And what does a throne symbolize for any society? The seat of power. So that's why you got to read the culture. Even far back as you go, it's telling you, not only is she the seat of culture, which is sitting on her head representing her mind, but the child who's going to be the leader of the world, the savior of the world, Heru, is sitting on her lap. Her lap is the throne. Y'all getting me? I'm not trying to get too esoteric right now. I'm trying to tell you something. You see, trying to tell you something. So if you go to Ghana, many of us have been to Ghana, we go to Ashanti and we see the great king, and he's called the Asante Henny. And he got all the gold, and even his cloth got gold woven in it and everything, and he got the kente cloth. But that's all right. I got one too. It's gone up in the middle of all kind of business transactions. And but the Santahini gets to be Santahini because the queen mothers choose him, not the men. The men get to enthrone and install him, but it is the woman that chooses him. Same thing in Nigeria, Yoruba kingdom. Matter of fact, they say in the Yoruba kingdom, if that king violate the protocols and his mother or his wife or the other women rip their bra and show their breasts in front of the palace, he done. He gone. Because the women say you are not appropriate to lead. That's power giving authority. But authority have to be culturally competent to respect the power that give them the authority. And right now, because our culture is all screwed up and we all up at white folks and Asian folks and other folks' culture, we are not culturally competent as Black people. Y'all understand? Okay. So the fight that you're going through now, dealing with trying to bring the color culture back to life down here in the Southern Corridor, is not a little fight. You may not even realize how serious a fight it is. So how many brothers in here travel like me and you can do this and this and this? How many? Raise your hand if you will. Okay. So, okay. Yes, I'm one of you. Y'all didn't know that, right? You thought I was some old nationalistic little hip-hop Negro. Yeah. So what I'm telling my brothers, I'm a Freemason, and I'm a proud Prince Hall Freemason. And Freemasonry is one of the greatest organizations Black people built in North America, but we're allowing it to fade. And the reason I raise it, because there is no fundamental difference between what is taught in Freemasonry and what was taught by the Pharaoh in ancient Egypt. There is no fundamental difference in what is taught in Freemasonry than what should be taught in the Yoruba system. There is no fundamental difference between voodoo and Freemasonry unless you don't know. I know most of you think voodoo is like real and bad stuff. Let me give you the root of the word. The word voodoo comes from the language of the Ewe people and the Fon people of Benin and the Ewe people of Togo. The word means the essence of the divine. It means the essence of God. White people, just like they took the word negrito and made it nigger and made it ugly, they took the word voodoo, our word for the essence of God, and made it ugly. Why? So you reach back to it to find energy and source. See? And so if I was in the Ewe language and I wanted to say the essence of God in humans, I would say voodoo Gadzi, meaning the essence of God is in the human family. If I wanted to say the essence of God in nature, I would say voodoo daha, the essence of God in nature. That's one of the most sacred words we have, and they're defaming it. But they only got away with the defamation because we let them. The word Negro don't come from the Portuguese and the Spanish. It comes from ancient Sudan. Yes, they Latinize it and Anglicize it and then profane it by the time they get to the nigger piece. But the root of the word is our word. And it means like shining, like the Spirit of God being in someone and it shines, like when you see the picture and they paint the halo, right? You'll be watching things, but you don't know what you be watching, see? So I'm leading to something I say to everybody that study history. If you don't learn history, you blinded by somebody else's mystery. Learn your history, you get rid of their mystery. You don't know your history, you got their mystery. You ever seen The Last Supper? Beautiful picture, right? There's a man sitting in the middle named Jesus. I used to hate Jesus, but now I love Jesus because I understand who Jesus is. So you got to find out truth in order to put context to something. He's sitting there and he's got a light around his head, right? We say halo, right? Then he's got 6 persons on this side and 6 persons on that side. They're the disciples. But you got to look at the picture again. The 6 on this side is in 3 groups of 3s, and the 6 on this side is in 3 groups of 3s. Only talking to one another in that select group of 3s. That's the 4 seasons and the 12 months evolving around the sun of Orion. It's an anthropomorphic representation of the solar drama of how the universe works. People didn't read back then. So if you wanted to tell a story, writing it in a book, there would nobody reading but a handful of monks.
That's right.
So how are you going to tell the people the story? You paint it. Those paintings, Da Vinci and all those paintings we see in it, those were the hieroglyphics of early European intelligentsia telling the African story to their people so they could then use those principles to develop their society. And didn't they develop the hell out of their society?
Sure did.
They kicked our butts in the process, but they used our law to do it. Now we running around without a true knowledge and understanding of our own laws and wondering why we can't get out from under the oppression. One of the reasons you can't want to be the oppressor and then get out from under oppression. It don't work like that. If you want to be him, then you got to be on the level he puts you on. Okay. And he's put us on the bottom. You know, it's like my brothers thought I had to acknowledge my brothers and, you know, to let them know. So sometimes I say things, I want them to know I don't be disrespecting the craft. I just be trying to give some light, you know. If you walk into any one of our great temples in Egypt or at any lodge in America, you go between 2 pillars, the legs of the black woman. Study Egypt as you're studying it. Every temple, even the one torn down and the one standing, you got to go between 2 pillars. What is the symbology? Because all of that stuff in Egypt is symbolic writing. Because the people was ignorant to writing. And so the priests had to create a system using nature, the symbols out of nature, so that people could conceptualize the ideas they were trying to transmit. This is about, at the end of the day, building character. Building character. When you talk about this, people say, oh, that's mamby-pamby stuff. He ain't talking about no real revolution. I carried the gun. No joke, no me. Me and Kamasi, we go back. We were gunslingers in this movement. We fought people and we buried our brothers. You know, some of you were too young to even know when we were doing that. We were blessed. We could still look at each other at this age and realize we survived and we buried so many of our comrades. But we can't beat the white man with a gun. Let me tell you that right now, straight up and up front. If you think you're going to beat him with a gun, keep thinking, because you ain't, because he's the master of the gun. That's how he kicked our butt in the first place. We beat him with this.
That's right.
Okay? But you can't just beat him with this behaving like he behaves.
Right.
What is your African mind? Dr. Jeffries will get crude and says you have to have your African mind govern your black behind. Now, what is your African mind? Your African mind is a body of knowledge that you get from the study of your ancestors. History, your history, is nothing but the experience of your ancestors solving life's problems. Now, if you don't know your history, then you don't know how your ancestors solve the problems you're facing today.
Right.
And then you're caught in a conflict, unable to achieve. Most of our children, we have more children graduating college now than ever in the history of Black America. And they're doing good. They're making better money. I got a daughter that makes more money than me, my wife, my brothers, my son, my uncle, on one paycheck. And God bless me that she's got a good mind. It's African-centered and focused. But many of our children, we sent them to these educations, but we didn't give them the African baggage to take with them.
Right.
And so they come back with the PhD that they've earned, the doctor's degree, the law degree, the accounting degree, the executive degrees, and they're all working for the system to oppress their own people and don't even realize it. But we can't blame our babies because we didn't insist that in our household, Africa is inculcated in them. Whether the school do it or not, we should make sure that every household, 2 hours a week, if you just set aside 2 hours a week, in every household, just 2 hours a week, we gonna study things African.
Yep.
We solve so many problems in a year you wouldn't believe yourself. You like say, why the hell we're not doing this over long? You know? You, my brother, were mentioning when we came here in the 1500s with the Spanish. And we burnt their ships and they took the one that was about to discover back to the Dominican Republic. And we amalgamated into a black community that was already here. The black people were here before the so-called Indians, before the Asians came.
Right.
We fought a war for 10,000 years with them before the white man got here. That's the untold history. Some of us amalgamated and married into them, and we created these brown and reddy-looking people, which we have. But some of them remained our enemies to this day and started with the Europeans against us. And that's how we end up getting the Seminoles. There's no such thing as a Seminole Indian. There's a Spanish word, cimarron, which means runaway, or runaway slave, or runaway enslaved. The white American couldn't say cimarron, so he said Seminole. And that group of black people who made it to Florida, which was free until after the Civil War from America, married into a native population called the Red-tailed Creeks. There was a larger Creek nation, but the larger Creek nation fought on the side of the whites. They hunted us down like dogs.
Right.
But the Red-tailed Creek, that small tribe, the king married an African woman, and he stayed loyal to that family relationship, and we amalgamated with that group. And so when they had, and you know they do movies, and I'm diverse, but I'm coming back. They have this movie about the Trail of Tears, that they got all these white people playing Indians, marching in the Trail of Tears. That's not what really happened.
Right.
That so-called Trail of Tears was those black people from Florida being marched to Oklahoma. They're the same black people that built Black Wall Street.
Right.
And 30 other black Oklahoma towns we never think about.
Right.
You know, some of them went with Chief, was it something Horse?
John Horse.
To Mexico.
Yep.
But when they helped the Mexicans free themselves.
Right.
And then they turned against us in many ways, even though there's still a town there that we built. That's mostly black till today. But many of them returned and came back to the Oklahoma territory. You know? So we need to study all of these stories, see, because black people is indigenous to everywhere in the world. We were the first people in Europe. We were the first people in Japan. We were the first people in China. We were the first people in Vietnam. We were the first people in Korea. We were the indigenous people of India, because we are the indigenous original manifestation of God as a human being. Just that concept alone, we need to have. Now I see the sister here, she just taping away. I don't mind, enjoy yourself, girl. Tape it. Stop letting the thing spin around on your whole thing. It ain't working right. I'll tape. I've never objected to being recorded or taping. Because it wouldn't make no sense to come up here giving information, tell people you can't record it. That don't make no sense. Record anything I do. You can sell any tape of me you want. Do anything you want. But I was about to mess with you about something. Do you have any ancestors? Huh? Do you have ancestors? Name 2 of them. Stop being scared. Name 2 of your ancestors. Okay. Who is your most powerful ancestor? No. No disrespect to them. You are. Everybody in this room, and y'all have heard me say it, other people have picked up on it, but I'm going to take credit for saying years ago, we are our ancestors. When your mother and father gave birth to you, they gave birth to themselves. Back up on that tape. When your mother and father gave birth to you, they gave birth to themselves. That being true, then they were given birth to by your 4 grandparents, who are now you, and they were given birth to by your 8 grandparents, who are now you, and they were given birth to by your 16 grandparents, who are now you, and your 32, and your 64, and so on. So you are the greatest ancestors you got. When that brother was pouring libation, he was pouring libation to a memory of a time when you existed before this time. You got that? I'm giving you some real geeky stuff now. Y'all think it through, take it to any scientist, sociologist, and psychologist you want, and they cannot disprove what I just told you. There's nothing new under the sun, including you. Okay. And people say, what if the family have 6 children? Well, all 6 of them carry the totality of the parents. They may have greater or lesser manifestations of certain of their qualities and attributes, but it's still the same ancestors going forward. You are the ancestors you pour the libation to. If you understand that, this fear of death that the white man has used to dominate us will be gone. It would be gone because you realize that you cannot be killed. You're matter and energy. Neither can be destroyed. But there's something malfunctioning in nature, and it is our responsibility to restore proper functioning in nature. The white man is not evil, nor is he wrong. He's being exactly what nature created him to be. We're not being what nature created us to be. We're the problem. We're trying to be him in black and asking why it don't work. Well, it doesn't work. Because that's not why you were created by nature. Nature did not create the sun to do what the water does. All right? It did not create the land to do what the sun does. You were not created to do what the whites do. They were created for their role in nature. You were created for yours. You are the centerpiece of that scale you call ma'at. You determine the balance. So stop talking about ma'at and then trying to put up some cute little woman with some dreadlocks. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing. I had dreadlocks. I was a handsome thing. Women didn't give a shit about me because I ain't had no money. I ain't had no job. So all that dreadlock didn't need nothing. So I cut it off. Did it But it's the truth. You know? This war we are in, and we are in a war. We've been in a war for thousands of years. It doesn't just start with the transatlantic slave trade. We've been in a war for thousands of years. It is a war to restore the balance in the universe itself. It's not just about being black. It's not just about the planet Earth. We are the instrument that has to restore the balance in the universe. White people understand that. But you're not going to do it by sitting down someplace humming or meditating. That shit ain't going to work. Okay. You have to organize yourself by a cultural value system based on the ethics and the morals and the principles that would allow you to create a living engine called the human body and the human mind. Because all of us in here are old enough, except a few of them kids, to know we have the power to seduce one another. We've all done it, so don't even sit like you some Virgin Mary and act like you didn't say, I want that brother there when I got him, because you want him. And the same thing. But what was the energy you used? You don't even think about it. What was that energy you used? How did you summon that energy for that occasion? What was the stimulus that made you get that kind of courage? We don't study that. Okay. And that's where culture comes in, because at the core of your culture is your spiritual system.
Right.
Right. Our spirituality, when we truly understand it, is simply a comprehension of a governing and an understanding of our reality. If you separate spirituality from reality, both are meaningless nothings. Spirituality and reality is the same thing. Except one is just being conscious of or being unconscious of the fact. Okay. You could use Jesus. Listen, we use Jesus and Christianity in a revolutionary way for nearly 150 years. If it wasn't for that church, we might have got wiped out completely out of America. So as much as we have against the way it's being run today, there was a time it was the only sanctuary we had. So we went into church. Now the church today ain't the same church of 50 years ago. It certainly ain't the church of 100 years ago, many of them. There's still a few good ones where people are trying to do the right thing. But you don't understand what the church was to your ancestors because you don't even know the history of the black people of Charleston or the black people of Somerville or the black people of North. Y'all don't know nothing about them people. You don't even know why they went to church. How many of us are Eastern Stars up in here? Okay, that's good. All right. Listen, y'all, my sisters. How many of you have ever heard of the Daughters of Tent?
Absolutely. Right downtown.
The daughters of Ruth. The daughters of Isis. Why do you think our people constructed those societies? That's where they hid the African culture. Because African culture ain't a name. It's a behavior, it's a value system, it's a set of rules and regulation that governs how you create the human character, how you birth and rebirth yourself each generation. That's what African culture is supposed to do. How many people in here went on the moaning bench when you joined the church? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we older folk, we went to that moaning bench. Now, moaning bench, for those who don't know, when you got 13 in any community, especially down here in South Carolina, they collected up all the boys and girls 13 that year. And then for a year, you had to go to church, mother, the girls, then the boys picked the church father. And then you got instructed for a year. You did little special things in Sunday school and other things. Then at the end of that year, they didn't use your local preacher. They used some out of town who could really shake it down, right? And stir it up. And then you had to get on your knee on that bench. And you close your eyes. And you prayed, and your family sang your song, their song over you, until you got the Holy Ghost, meaning until you got possessed. You couldn't fake it because the deacons and all them were there to check you, make sure you weren't just trying to fake it, get it off the bench, right? You had to get the spirit of the divine in you. And when you jump up and shouting and dancing, and they realize you got it, then you can sit down. Now you can be brought into the community. The church was the symbol of the African community. I'm telling y'all something, listen well, because we may have thrown out more of the baby with the bathwater than we needed to. So we need to rethink some of these relationships. If you read Jomo Kenyata's book, Facing Mount Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta was the head of the Mau Mau and the first president of Kenya. And the book was called Facing Mount Kenya. And in that book, he talks about the age grade. When every boy and girl turned 13, they were all grouped into an age grade. But that's the same thing we were doing with the motor bench. That was an African cultural methodology, okay, of rites of passage and socialization that we were using in the church. Because that's where we hid Africa, in the church. That was the only hiding place we were allowed. Okay? And when you were on the moaning bench, when I realized this, I was in the bush, in a hut, being initiated as a priest into the Yoruba tradition. When I had to do the very same thing, except I was on the moaning bench, I was laying on the ground. And I couldn't lay on the left side. You laid on your back, your right side, and your stomach. That ground pulled the pain out of you, and that was painful. That negative energy that you had built up in your body on that ground got pulled out of you. But at some point, and the drums are playing constantly, day after day, because he's done it for 7 days. You got up shouting and dancing. The same thing we did in that church. So where's Africa in Black America? is quietly hidden in the church. Now, don't confuse white people Christianity with what black people did with Christianity out of necessity for surviving in America. So we need to go back and re-examine before we lose all that history. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because I know when we become African, become aware of being African, we got so busy want to wear the clothes and the colors and the hats and the dress that we just piss all over what our ancestors did for the last 200 years. And I did it too, and it's a big mistake. We have to examine what they did because they love us enough that they did the best they could with what they had. And when we reject them, we reject the very future we're trying to build. So go back into that church and study. Take your camera like sister here, right? And when that old lady, the oldest lady in that church gets to shouting and dancing, take a picture of her footsteps. Because you know what those footsteps are? They're the ethnic dance her great-grandmother brought from Africa. Listen to the clapping of those hands, stomping on the feet. Those are the drum beats. Because they didn't want us to play the drum, so we beat the drum with our feet and our hands and our thighs. And at one point, when God gave me that information, I'm in Ghana. I wanted to buy a drum. So I'm at the market in Accra, the Cultural Arts Center. And so it was Friday, so all the Muslim brothers who sell the drums, they went to Juma to pray. So I went over with the brother who was with me, and I'm beating a lot. The only beat I knew is a clapping rhythm I remember from the church down on Acadia Plantation, or St. Anne's Baptist. I'm just playing it, sounding like I know I'm doing something right. Next thing I know, men are running from everywhere with sticks and stones and bricks. And then I panicked, because I was telling him, I'm not trying to steal it, I didn't do it. And the Ghanaian brother who was with me told me, I wasn't causing no harm. The rhythm I was beating that I remember from the church of the plantation was an Afrikan rhythm that meant I'm in distress. And that's when I woke up and go like, oh shit. We've been missing what our ancestors left for us. Because in rejecting the white man's church, we rejected all things black in the church. And that church was the trunk. You know, the trunk in all of our houses that they put all that old stuff in?
Yeah.
That's what the church is. So you got to go back and re-examine some of this stuff and find it. They saved it there for us because that's the only place they had to save it. They saved it in our songs. You notice that if you listen to white Southerners or white people in general, they still sing the same songs from 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And to them, it sounds just as new. Johnny's back in the garden, trying to get everything down the right way. Come on, George. But they say, because it's a message in the song. I've had it. But they have messages they give it to one another. White people took over the music industry and thus took over our cultural aspect that deals with songs and music. And every year they give us a new music genre. So that we keep losing the historical memory that's encoded in the songs of generations before. You all understand what I just said?
Yep.
I decided to buy one of those albums off of TV, 60s music. Girl, I've been jamming. I went back to being 17, 18, 19. I said, it's all it takes to become 17 years old again. Just turn up the volume, right? Hearing Mary Wells talking about my guy, and go like, yeah, I love it. See, we need to be back there. Where black men and women sang about loving one another, adoring one another. We went from loving one another, adoring one another, calling us the B word and the H word overnight. How did that happen? What white man, music mogul, decided, I'm gonna give you this money if you sing this filth? And I'm not gonna give you no money because you're trying to sing something that's worthy of a people. And thus guide the music that we dance and shake to, not understanding why we dance and shake to it. We don't understand how words murder and kill minds. And then they use your African rhythm and beats to draw you to the filthy lyrics that you must ingest and your children must ingest that lead to your death. And you still think it's music because you don't understand who's pulling the strings. Well, ask Tupac who pulled the strings. Ask Biggie who pulled the strings. Ask Sam Cooke who pulled the strings. Ask Otis Redding who pulled the strings, because they killed all of them for fighting back with the string pullers. I know some of you saw the piece up there where I'm talking about Tupac. I talked to him 2 days before he died. And he told me that the rift between him and Biggie was not real. This was the man. And him and Biggie was cool. And they had some plans, and he wanted to come to New York and talk to me about it. He was in Las Vegas. And he said, I said, well, what do you want to talk about? Because I had a beef with him over something else. And he said, well, Professor Small, we need to get some advice on how to organize this thing, because we want to take control of distribution of rap music. Well, the money in music is in distribution. And that's how they've been controlling our music and us. Well, they killed that boy the next day. They would later kill Biggie. And they killed about 4 or 5 other rappers, 3 of them in Jersey, who were part of the group that Tupac was pulling together. One was his cousin. And we don't even know what happened. Because we're not listening to what the musicians are saying. Remember when Michael Jackson come back, and I'm gonna come back to some historical thing. Michael was disappeared for a while after they tried to persecute him and saying he was a pedophile and all of this was, they knew the kid was not. He had some issues, but that wasn't one of them. He simply loved children. He lost his childhood and he wanted to give other kids that childhood. The white folks misinterpret. Even when the white folks came forward and says, we did it for the money, they didn't publish that, like they published the accusations against them. But his brothers took him into the Arab world and kept him over there for about 3 or 4 years. And Michael came back ready. What was his theme song? They don't care about us. And Michael Jackson was then the most powerful voice on the planet Earth. And he was getting ready to rip them. And they killed that boy. And they used one of us to do it. When he got out of jail, after that 4 years, his bank account was well stacked. But you've got to understand you're at war, to understand who your enemies are and how they are your enemy. Nothing moves Black people like music, the vibrations and the rhythm of our music. So if you put the poison in that vibration, you can kill a whole people. Words are power. Words can either heal you or kill you. Do you understand? And we have an enemy that knows that. You know? And then the other thing he gets us doing, there's about 80 million of us in America. They say 60 million. Then they tell us they didn't do census on 1/3 of us. So if you tell me you didn't do census on 1/3, I can't trust you. So it must be more of us you left out. So I estimate 80 million of us. And then they take the other 20 million who are Black but speak Spanish and say, oh, they're not yours. They're Black, hair nappy just like yours, but they speak Spanish, so we're gonna call them Latino non-whites. If that population was pushed into our population sensibly like it should be, we'd be the largest ethnic group in America. The largest ethnic group in America is German. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants are Germans. And the other Germanics from Europe, they're the largest group in America. We're the second largest group, the African American population. But if we had the Blacks who speak Spanish, knowing they were Africans too, we'd be the largest group in America. And we are the largest group. We just won't identify ourselves as being such. Now I put that because you need to think about these things, because what are you doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? We, handful in this room, represent a multitude here in Charleston and in North Charleston. But unless we come together, really come together, we got to get out of I'm the Muslim you the Christian, I'm the Moor, you the Hebrew, I'm the what's the brother? He's got a bookstore down the street, but whatever. We need to understand Nawabians. Well, I knew the leadership was not always. They're brilliant young people, but they made mistakes. All of us gonna make mistakes. You don't dwell on the mistakes people made. You dwell on the things that they did that will help you get out of the pit you find yourself in. You know? You use the best of the tools, not the worst of the tools. But what we need to understand, this thing is about economics, it's about politics, and it's about culture. You can't separate economics from politics, nor can you separate economics from culture. And you can't separate culture from politics, nor can you separate culture from economics. And you can't separate politics from culture or economics. Those three things is essential as goals, and they must be married to each other. Economic, politics, and culture. If you don't control the economics, the politics, and the culture where you live, you're a slave to the person who does. If you don't gain control of land, labor, and resources where you live, then whoever has control is your master. If you can't provide food, clothing, and shelter for yourself, your family, and your kind without begging another community, then you're a slave to those other communities. So I don't care how brown you look, how much you say Salam Alaikum Rahmatullah, and you running all the grocery stores in my community selling me pork and liquor and all the poisons you can get, and selling me the stuff that the white markets have thrown out last month, you now restamped it and selling it to me. You're not my brother, and you're not my sister. And we have to tell these people, we don't have to come and burn your store down. We just stop shopping and you'll give the store to us. But it takes unity to do that. Because economic, politics, and culture, if you don't get control of those, you can wear all the African clothes you want. You can have all the natural hairdo you want. You can go to Ghana as often you want. If you don't get control of the economic, politics, and culture where you live, if you don't use that to get control of land, labor, and resources where you live, if you're not clear that you can provide food, clothing, shelter, safety for yourself, you are a slave, whether you got a PhD, a medical degree, or a law degree, or whatever degree. It means nothing. You're just a fancier slave than the others who don't have those things. Now that comes back to history. History erases the mystery. You cannot develop a politics without having a history of the people whose politics you want to develop and a history of the environment in which you try to develop that politics. You can't do it. And since the enemy has taken control of your school system, that's not their school system. So I would contend with you just on that. That's our system. That's our tax money. They make us pay 30-some% of our salary every month to run the government. The government has no source of income except what they take from us. So that's ours. So let's come up with a methodology to take our shit back from them. And that has to be a part of the plan. You can't do it for all of them at once. Pick one school and decide we're going to organize and take that one back. Use all the legal means you have. And then go to the churches, you nationalists and Africanists and Pan-Africanists. The churches control the mind of 90-something% of your people every week. Every Sunday, 90-something% of your people are sitting up in a church somewhere in this country, giving the best of their money to some Mr. Hooper and but Hoochie Daddy got Jesus on his side, so we let it go. But not all ministers now. There's some darn good ministers out here. Find them. You got some good ministers right in this community. Find them, stop fighting them, and find out how you can collaborate. find out how you can collaborate to use those facilities. So we can set up STEM programs to teach our children the math and science the school refuses to teach them. In Saturday schools and after schools. Otherwise, we're just talking. You got to be able to do that. You've got to, in your home, set aside an hour, 2 hours would be better, but if you can only set aside an hour a week to watch a video on our history and our culture, then set aside that hour, and everybody in the house have to turn off the phone, turn off the computer, turn off the TV, and that hour, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, you're competing against all of these things. But you can beat them with 1 hour a week. Drugs and the thieves in our community and the ones who are killing people. But guess what? 90%, 95% of us not doing none of that. So why don't we talk about the 95%? Who get up every morning, go to work hard, make money, come home to their family. Let's talk about them. Let's call their names. We have schools in this country where 100% of black male children graduate and go to college. Nobody talks about it. They talk about the few that went to the penitentiary. And even those that went to the penitentiary, they are ours too. But they're the ones that got injured. But we have many who did not get injured, who did not get broken. And we're not holding them up as light for the other children to see. And we need to start doing more of that. And then celebrate yourself more. Stop squabbling about whether Juneteenth is this or Juneteenth is that. Damn it, celebrate it. Make it something that you want it to be. You know, we got Kwanzaa. Make it something. You say, well, I don't want to celebrate Juneteenth because we had Emancipation Day on the 1st. We'll celebrate Emancipation Day on the 1st. When I was young, we used to march, have parades in Georgetown on the 1st. I think Charleston used to have them too. So do it. Stop complaining about which one ain't right. You know how many, you go on a calendar and look at holidays of ethnic groups in America. The Jews got about 50,000 and they ain't even arguing. They want 50,000 more. You got one, Martin Luther King Day, and we don't celebrate that. We don't. We do not celebrate the one, and now we've got as a federal holiday, Juneteenth. And this year, because the white man said it was cool and okay, we made a big brouhaha about it. What about next year? You see, if you don't celebrate yourself, how are you going to be able to grow yourself? You got to celebrate yourself.
Yes.
We should have a holiday for every day of the week that at least in our home we acknowledge by lighting a candle or something. We should have at least a weekly celebration that we get together in the community and do, and a monthly one that we should do nationally. Look at the people who are winning and see what they do. The Jews' religion is a deification of their history. Now you can say, well, that's our history, they stole it. Well, they got it and you don't. And they've deified it. And they're living according to it. And you are not. So if it's yours, then celebrate it. But they've turned it into theirs. And they're the most successful group in the world. We are primarily Jewish slaves, for the most part. We're their slaves. And don't even know it. Even those of us who think we're free. You know, I had to ask permission to take my chains off before I came here today. Y'all don't know, y'all asked permission too. Freedom is being shackled to your identity. Dr. Asa Hilliard said that, and I love that. Freedom is being shackled to your identity. But we can't have 50,000 identities. We gotta have one identity. And the one that makes sense is Africa's, and everything else is subordinate to that. The Yoruba is subordinate to Africa. The Gala is subordinate to Africa. The Akan is subordinate to Africa. Those are families within the African greater kingdom. And that African identity, we've been living for so long, we got so many great kingdoms. Let's celebrate them. Let's celebrate the Gala kingdom, but not to the expense of the Yoruba kingdom, or the Akan kingdom, or the Congo kingdom, or the Angola kingdom, all landed here in South Carolina. And guess what? All of them is trying to tell the same story about how to be a human being, just differently. But it's the same story. How do I be a better human being? You know what I mean, brothers. It says, why have you come to this place? To make a better man better? Where did you first realize yourself to be? In my heart. Y'all understand me, some of you?
Yes, yes.
So freedom, identity is important. That's why natural hairdo is important. But not just for the sake of the hairdo, but that hair is a part of you. When you kill it, you're killing an aspect of yourself. Okay. It's an integral part of you, just like the skin on your arm. You wouldn't just go cut the skin off or pull lye on your arm, would you? Well, we would put lye on our hair, weren't we? Then we modernize the lye and call it perms. Then we burn out all the scalps. Then the sisters start going bald to hide the burnt out scalps. Remember how they did it? My children went through the same thing, my poor babies. But at least we talked about it. Now, what is it we're trying to say up here? If I came all the way down, you know, to tell you that you are your liberator.
Yes.
I'm working on a movie set now. Y'all heard something called The Godfather of Harlem?
Yes.
Okay. Much of that is about to come out of my mind. It's written by Chris Brancato. Chris is a good writer. He wrote Hoodlum, him and Paul, a brother, and he wrote Narco. Both of them fine music. But the concept is about a black man from Charleston, South Carolina named Bumpy Johnson, who came to New York. And the reason Bumpy goes to New York, because Bumpy had an older brother who killed a white man. And you know, in those days we were smart. So we got him safely out of town to New York. So when Bumpy got to be 13, the parents know that the white people would kind of push up on him because they now want to seek vengeance for what his brother had done years before. So they sent him away at 13 to his sister up in New York. Bumpy, when he got to be 18, he wanted to go to college, so he went to City College. He wanted to be a lawyer. But because he was a young black boy, the white folks marginalized him and pushed him out of the college. Told him, like they told Malcolm, you need to be a carpenter or something that black people could do. So he got a job. His sister said, well, you ain't going to school, you got to get a job. So he got a job. So Bumpy got to be so smart in remembering the numbers that he became a little runner. And then there's a sister named Madam St. Clair from the islands who had developed this number, developed a method of doing it. Then Bumpy became her security person, and she took care of Madam Sinclair. Well, there was a white man in the Bronx named Dutch Schultz, a Jew, who was a gangster and a murderer and all the harsh things. Bumpy Johnson took him on, and even the white mafia had to admire him because they were scared of this guy. And eventually Bumpy worked with them and they got him killed. And then Bumpy took over Harlem. He's working with a man named Lucky Luciano, who was a Sicilian. Sicilians are part of the Moorish Italian population, different from the Calabrese, the white Italians. And so Luciano and Bumpy worked together. So Luciano put a cover over Bumpy so the other mafias would mess with him. But when they ran Luciano out of the country, and after Luciano died, I think from a heart attack, the rest of the boys said, we're gonna take Harlem back. But at that time, Bumpy had took a fall for Luciano and went to Alcatraz for 11 years and kept his mouth shut. But when he came back home, the La Cosa Nostra had taken Harlem. So the movie is about the last 10 years of his life when he's taken Harlem back. So the name of it is When the Black Underworld Meets the Civil Rights Movement, because he's got two friends helping him to do it, Malcolm X and Adam Clayton Powell. And Giancarlo Esposito is playing Adam Powell. He's doing a much better, but John would do a better role, but the writers are doing a better this go around than they did in the early. And Forrest Whitaker's playing Bumpy Johnson. And then there's the young brother playing Malcolm X. But the one thing we did, we said, Bumpy, I told him, y'all are not gonna have another gangster that's just running on with a prostitute and selling dope and shooting people. You got to give him a family. And then you got to show him at home sitting at the kitchen table eating dinner with his wife and his children. So we changed the description of the gangster.
It's a great movie.
And he even joined the lodge in the piece. We call the lodge by another name, of course, right? But we had him joining the lodge because in real life, Bumpy was one of us, right? And he's working with the black bankers. The point I'm making is that somebody's trying to tell one of our stories. I'm the consultant on the project, helping to tell the story. Now, people think that you're doing this with the big Hollywood people, you're making a lot of money, but no. I'm there because it's an opportunity to tell our story as right as possible, even though the institution is not our institution. And just as we could tell that story about Bumpy Johnson, there's 1,000 great heroes right here in the Low Country, South Carolina, who we could make videos about and tell their stories.
Mhm.
What's that brother named Galveston? He was running the swamps up in Nihead doing slavery, helping people to escape. He killed, what's his name? Galajad? Right. Galajad.
Yeah.
And he killed some white dude down there by Georgetown. They really went out for him.
That he was Africa.
Yeah.
He was called Africa and Forest.
Okay.
Right.
And so it was a brother that gave him up. I
Right.
forgot the name.
Right. No.
But the point I'm making, he was ruling the woods from Sanford to Columbia.
That's right. All the way to Columbia.
All right. But we're not telling his story. We don't have to go all the way to the continent of Africa to find a hero.
I'm telling that story. I need help getting that story out.
Well, you get the
Because I
help,
know
you
that
find
story.
the help and get the story out.
Absolutely.
Because if you got the story and it don't belong to you,
I know.
your job is to get it out here to the rest of the people. So find the people with the technology. You ain't got to do no big movie. Do the video piece.
Right.
We've got a video piece coming up now called Heavy is the Crown. One brother did that. Yeah, but 7 of us did the commentary. But one brother, Chris Amadeus, he came down here and spoke to y'all once. You know, Chris Amadeus did all of the graphics in his living room. You've never seen nothing like it. We can do that.
Right.
And put our story out here for our children and ourselves. This culture in Charleston County, Berkeley County, Georgetown County, Old Reed County, Marion, this culture is one of the most dynamic in the world.
That's right.
These people we call the Gullah Geechee people.
Mhm.
Right? You know, during the Civil War, when they had the prison upstate here, we ran an underground railroad, right, to help white prisoners of war escape from the Confederacy and get them back to Union lines. That take guts. The black people were doing that. Road in Berkeley County. But see, the way you educate your people is to let them get to know themselves. Tell your story to yourself. But if you let their story go and look for some dynamics, some mysteries person from someplace else, we're going to stay in the mess we're in. So history gets rid of the mystery. So let me ask you, what am I wearing around my neck? I'm taking you to a lot of places because I can't give you 76 years in one night. And I've been lecturing for 56 years, right? Somebody say Eleke. What is that Eleke? A spiritual being. Like that plastic cup you got in your hand is a spiritual cup. Oh, you got a spirit in the cup. No, I got you. No, I'm messing with you, but at the same time, I'm showing you something. This one is black and white. This one is green and black. This one is black and red. This one is brown. And this one is red and white. Now, all of them mean something. So what did our people do? We were brought out of Africa. We got a culture. We got a philosophy. We have a worldview. All right? we have an understanding of our fundamental reality in nature and cosmology. But somebody took us out of that. All of our tools are left behind. Our clothing is left behind. Symbolism is left behind. Then they won't let us speak our language straight out. So we got to create a Creole called Gullah. All right? So what do? We create a way to preserve the philosophical system of Africa in the form of beads. Each one of these beads is a school of thought, is a philosophical system. This one they call in Trinidad Shakpana or Babaluaye. This has to do with the medical science. I'm not wearing one, but you've got one that has to do with the herbal science. You have Shango, which has to do with leadership and integrity. You've got Oya that has to do with change in process. You got Ogun that has to do with strength, power, and transformation. The African philosophy and worldview in plain view. And it's lasted till right now. So if I say, I'm a priest of Oya, so I'm not a Babalawo, I'm a Babalorisha. Baba simply means father. Lorisha means the powers of nature, really the simplest way to say it, the forces of nature or the powers of nature. So I study something called Ifa Orisha. Ifa means the force, the wisdom of the universe. That's what Ifa is, the wisdom of the universe. And it is thousands of verses our ancestors have recorded called Odus that you must learn when you become a priest, so that you can then teach the concepts, ideas, and principles of each of these schools of thought. There's hundreds of orishas, right? Hundreds of concepts, ideas, and principles about living that these things represent. So for instance, Oya, where's my mother? Is this one, the brown one. Now, Oya is the wind. What does the wind do? The wind blows away the stale and the old and allows for the fresh and the new to come. They said Oya is the guardian of the gateway to the cemetery. That she sits at the gate to the cemetery. Who's in the cemetery? No. The cemetery contains the remains of your ancestors, you before this time. That's symbolic of the wisdom of yesteryear. So she's the guardian of the wisdom of a people. Y'all understand me? It ain't just beads, right? So there's a story about Shango, who's the king, dear laughing. And there's an occasion when his ego and his arrogance and his disrespect got the best of him. And so he had his two brothers to fight. They said, whichever one win, I'm gonna make you wealthy and I'm gonna make you my co-regent. And his two blood brothers fought to the death and one of them died. And when he realized as the king, he had used his power based on his arrogance and his greed and his ego to kill his own brother, to even have one of his brother commit murder in the fight against the other brother. He ran up in the forest and he committed suicide. There's a term called, I think it's Obakosu. The king is not dead, right? Because when he goes to commit suicide, Oya, and this time she's a chameleon, so she changed to an antelope, and she cuts him down. What died that day was his ego. What died that day was his arrogance. What died that day was his disrespect to human beings. And so he marries Oya. Because at the point when he loses these negative qualities, he comes into the realization he needs to change himself into a better human being. So he turns and marries what? He marries change in process. That's who Oya is. The determination to want to change must then marry change in your consciousness, in your subconscious. And then Oya practiced polyandry because she then goes off and marries Ogun. Ogun, that said the god of iron, the god of war, because we like to sound like white people talking about god of war, god of iron. African culture is not about war. Never was. Even though we've had some great warriors. But that's not what our culture was about. So I'm gonna wrap this down in a few minutes. But when she marries Ogun, what you see occurring, right, is the need for change and the acknowledgement that I need to change and transform myself, called Shango, marries the process of change called Oya, who then marries Ogun, which is transformation as a result of change. Y'all got that? Because when we talk about Ogun, we talk about iron and we talk about war, god of iron, god of war. What is the process of getting iron? You take a piece of stone full of all kinds of impurities and you put it in fire and you burn out the impurities and you get iron or steel. And you can then use that to make weapons or tools for your new technology. So that is symbolic of transformation, right? So the need for change marries change, and then change marries transformation, which is a result of change. And that's just three of their Orisha, dealing just with one of their paths, because Oya alone has 11 paths, 11 perspectives that will help you enlighten your view of yourself. That's what this tradition is about, not declaration. These are all schools of thought, philosophical and ideological and ethical and moral schools of thought contained in these beads through memory. Y'all understand that?
Absolutely.
So if you understand that when we get to getting into African religion and tradition, it ain't about charging people money. Oh, come on, I'm gonna give you a reading. You give me $300, I'm gonna read you. And we go, because we're desperate, our situation is bad. We find the $300 and we give it to some charlatan most times who don't give us nothing. $300. You want to find a good reader, look in the damn mirror. Nobody can read you better than yourself if you're honest with yourself. You don't need no reader if you're going to tell yourself the truth about yourself. Because all of us, me, with all the stuff I know, I'm still a mess in progress. I'm still a work in progress, you know? And we all know we are. But if we learn these things, we learn to govern ourselves better each time and minimize our abuse against one another. So let me broach the subject now that some of y'all gonna get mad about. And it's called Roe versus Wade, or Wade versus Roe. What do you call this stuff? You know, and people always talk about the exceptions. Well, when is somebody get raped? But we could deal with exceptions. But our culture was never a culture of murdering babies. Now, all of us have been forced into it. It's in my family. We've had abortions that we shouldn't have had. And my siblings, we've had them, and others, we've had them. But we didn't know any damn better. But we need to learn better. Only the universe determines when life starts, not any of us in this room, not no Congress of the United States. The same Congress that we were slaves forever. The same Congress that white people were superior to us. So, and that Supreme Court supported all of that. These crazy white people who were out there in the street marching, crazy white women, they raised all of the white racists in America. So, you gonna tell me that you raised all them Ku Klux Klan men, but you gonna march for something good? Give me a break. We gotta stop lying to ourselves about the realities we're faced with every day. This ain't got to do with no hate nobody or being mad with nobody. You don't need none of that in your system to realize fundamental truth about anything. At the end of our life, in this body, everybody knows when it ends, when it ends. How come we let nature make that determination? How come we confused about when it begins? And then we got people talking about it begins at 6 months, it begins. That's bull. It begins the minute that sperm and that egg come together. And if you allow someone to mentally train you to murder yourself within yourself, you will tolerate the murder out of yourself by yourself, And you can't complain about them gunslingers in the street because you created them with your minds. I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. We talk about spirituality. Here, this system have made us hurt ourselves. I remember when I paid for my first sister's, one of my sister's abortion many years ago. I didn't know what I was doing. And I gave the family the money. Years later, as I learned more and I understood more, then I realized something wrong with this picture because Mama had 13 children. My mama had 13, I'm 7. She didn't support none of us. She raised all of us. We weren't rich. We worked on that plantation. I didn't know what a dollar bill looked like. I thought a nickel was $1 million. How come we don't know how to take care of children no more? And we got white people raising commercials, using black people, with the black mother saying, I ain't got time to take care of my grandchildren because it's time for me to live for me. That's not our culture. My grandchildren is me. I told you that earlier. I gave birth to my children. They gave birth to my grandchildren. They gave birth to me. It is my job to protect me going forward. But that's not what the culture is that we live in. But that's the culture that Africa gave and left for us, and we need to get back. When you know what you are, you know what to fight for. We can take care of our babies. Last year we spent $1.6 trillion. Year before 1.3, then 1.3, then 1.2, 1.1. There's no reason we have one impoverished person in the black community with that kind of money to spend. So it ain't that we ain't got money. We got plenty money. But we don't know who we are. We around here arguing about identity. I'm what do they call it? We got all kinds of crazy names. I'm just God having a human experience, and we call it Africa every now and then. Bye. Okay. So I hope I've kind of given y'all a message. 1, you're God having a human experience. Stop being scared to know that. 2, we can take care of one another if we learn how to love ourselves. Because you can't love nobody else if you don't love yourself. And part of our situation is we want to love people and we don't love ourselves. Because we haven't been taught to love ourselves because we haven't been taught to know ourselves. When you know who you are, you will guard that thing jealously. And that's why I say freedom is being shackled to your identity. Our women, we don't play and call them our queen. You don't hurt a woman, men, physically. You get angry, walk the hell out of the house, go for a jog, and come back and try to have the conversation again. But stop this hurting our women physically, because we are physically stronger than she is. And all you got to do is drop a little something in our soup and wipe all of our butts out if she really wanted to. Because you will fight with a woman, beat up on her, abuse her, or go out, mess with her girlfriend, knowing she's going to hear about it, and come back and sit at her dinner table. You're a fool. And y'all crazy for not killing more of us. Just soup up the soup. And so John Boy, he had a good dinner last night before he had the heart attack. Because, see, if you know you're God, then I know God when I see it. And if I don't see God in you, then it's my job to try to help you develop God in you. Love loves love. But we've been taught to love a presentation of a thing called ourselves. You know, because the day I was telling the brother, I don't know what to wear tomorrow. I brought a nice blue casual shirt. I said, but I don't want to look too casual. I brought some blue pants, some black jeans, and I brought a nice plain white shirt. And then I brought this shirt. But I said, I should look like I got a little African something going on continentally, throwing a little kente up here and wearing the elekes. Because that stimulates something in people, because then they have a certain kind of expectation because of what I'm presenting. Because each of us is a presentation, right? And then I'm really gonna wrap. What time is it? Somebody give me a time. Oh yeah, it's time for me to bring this in. Y'all been in a long time. Each one of us, when we woke up this morning, decided how we were going to present ourselves today. Each one of us is a presentation. And part of that presentation was the hope of attracting something, either visual attraction, emotional attraction, and appreciation of your presentation. But we came out as a presentation, right? And presentation is expecting attraction. The problem is we live in a culture that what you end up attracting is unworthy of the presentation, right? You got it, you'll get it, right? And so that's why it's important to understand who we really are. Ethnically, we're Gala, we're Igbo, we're Bendi, we're Yoruba, we're Akan, and so forth. Racially, we have accepted to use the term Africa. That's not the first term, it's not even the oldest term, it's just the most universally used to inculcate. Now, if you're not willing to feel that, know that, and do that, you're never going to be free. African culture have been telling that, and that's why they're afraid of us. See, the Chinese people ain't in America trying to change the white people. They're trying to join the white people while remaining Chinese. Okay? The Latinos I see all up and down the street from Guatemala and Honduras, they're not here trying to change America. They're trying to join us and give them the money from it. We're the only population trying to change America. And that's why we set upon it. Because we can't live in America with her being what it is. Because it's evil. Now, we've made it good in many ways. Most of the good in America has come from the African in America fighting to change the Constitution, the state, and we've made it the most human society in the world. We've made it the freest society in the world. That's why everybody's running here, but they're not running here to change it. They're running here to become a part of it in its exploitive, evil nature. We're the only one that's saying almost universally that we got to make it better. And that's why people are angry with us, because we keep rocking the damn boat. And we have to, because our nature is not going to allow us to accept it. And when we do accept it, we find ourselves in a messy place, like R. Kelly. You find yourself in a messy place, like you go to Atlanta and go to Preacher's Row, where people got all these $1 million homes while their parishioners are damn near starving, children going to jail and they're homeless on the street. But we got the goodies. We're in the messy place. And so we can't join this. And we have an alternative to this. The alternative is African culture. Now, Egypt gives us a good example of how it is expressed. But West Africa, Central and South Africa gives us a good example of how it is lived. And those of us who ended up in the Americas and the Caribbean, we have amalgamated in a way that no other African group in the world, especially in North America and the United States. We are made up of more African ethnic nations than any other group of Africans anywhere on the planet, including the continent. Let me say that again, and with that. We are made up of more African ethnic nations than any other group on the planet, including any nation in Africa. What does that mean at the end of the day? No other cluster of human beings in the world contain all of the genetic elements that we do. Within each of those genetic clusters is a body of knowledge. Every cell and molecule in your body contains millions of years of experiences. You wake it up with culture, with vibrations, with rhythms, with meditation, with reference that produce a stimulation that cause recall. So you get to remember, put something together, remember parts. When you remember, you put the parts of something back together so you can use it to build going forward. You understand what I'm saying? Everything I'm talking to you about African culture without having it crazy. Malcolm said, make it plain, make it simple to the people. So that clothing, a genuine clothing, and I'm so happy to be down in Charleston. I wish I could stay here with y'all the whole week and just talk for a week. I could probably talk for a week too. But to let you know that what you're looking for is in the mirror. Accept it. If it needs changing when you view it, change it. What you're looking for that's not in the physical mirror is in your mental mirror. Cleanse it. Rebirth it. But to cleanse it and rebirth it, you must have information based on history that can stimulate the memory for you of who you used to be and you would like to become. That's what culture is all about. That's what this thing is that they're fighting you over. They know what you want to do. White folks know who you are capable of being, the ruling elite. The dumb masses of them, they don't know. But the ruling elite understand you can change the world, and in that you neutralize their evil. But you don't know, because you won't look in the mirror and accept what you see, and then transform what you no longer desire to be. And the more you learn about Africa, the more you learn about how to reconstruct and rebirth your African conscious self. Because every day is about rebirthing yourself. Every day is about reconstituting the pathway that you're walking on. Every day is about remembering so it can help you through the rebirthing process. And you can't be afraid. And basics, you got to control the economic, politics, and culture where you live. You can't live here and say, I ain't gonna vote. And there's no need to vote. I'm not gonna join the school board or the city council or the land, but you gotta join all those things and take it back from the people who are there. You can't send your child to school and never go to a PTA meeting. Okay? And if your wife in the church, get your behind up in that church with her. And transform the church and make it do what you want it to do, what it was designed to do. And Reverend Hoop and Holler won't be controlling your house. Mildly. So I love you.
Likewise.
I love you too.
There's a word in the Yoruba called lukomi. And the word literally means you belong to me and I belong to you. So lukomi to everybody. And thank you very much. Looking for this man, where's he at? But no, he ain't gonna run away. But again, understand that I'm so happy y'all came out. And I know y'all are doing good. This restaurant here, please support this restaurant. When I walked in here yesterday, I said, oh my God, I'm in West Africa. Just walking in here, the feeling, the visuals all took me right back to Africa. And most people who know me and my friends, we own a hotel in Ghana. So we're rebuilding right now. So the next time you're in Ghana, come to the Sana Lodge. Okay. And enjoy yourself. But I'm telling you also, invest in Africa. If you don't, your enemies will. And don't be crying later when there's nothing for you to invest in because somebody else has gotten it all. So go home and visit Africa. Go on vacation to Africa. Take your children. Buy land there. Build your guest home there. It doesn't take a lot to do it. Go in partnership with Africans in everything you do on that continent. And you will see how your life gets transposed and changed. And don't be afraid. And the last thing I'll tell you, the secret to life is to have no fear. The secret to life is to have no fear. So, my brother, where are you?
I believe he must have.
Uni, where are you? Okay, he must have had another problem to solve. But I hope you all have enjoyed the evening. And I have a site if you want to leave me any questions called ProfessorSmallAfricanWorld.com. ProfessorSmallAfricanWorld.com. That's my Facebook page. So if you want to ask some questions, or if you want to like get in touch with me, that's a good way to do it. And that way I can communicate with you. I do answer my own telephone and I return all my phone calls. I do return all of my messages. It may take me a few days to get there, but I do. Let's stay in communication. That's your tax dollar. Don't let them have it. Okay. Just take your plan, your trail while you're building the museum that you're building. You know, it's the love of self. And the reason they're building that museum is because they see the power that you now represent down here. You understand? Because that museum could have been any place else in America, but it's coming to Charleston because they see the power that you represent down here. Okay. So know that that's what's that's about. So cool, let them build it, then you take it. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's it. Are you still live streaming?
Okay. Yeah, I'm about to.
Oh,
I was going to, you can announce if anyone wants to participate, they can give me their email.
I think I can do that. You want to do that? All right, so
Real quick, everyone, if anyone is interested in a replay, you can email us at centralstationevents@gmail.com, or if you want to leave me your in case y'all want to. So again, you can either email us centralstationevents@gmail, or just come see me. My name's Renee.
Everyone, before you go, would you give Bob a round of applause? Thank you all for coming. Do you have anything? Okay.
What's your email address? Oh, Hi, how are you? So how you doing? Okay, perfect. I got very inspiring.